Well, I have to begin by confessing that I'm a little surprised to see people here. This is the 9th time I'm doing this, and there's probably nothing that I haven't said before that you haven't all heard before. So I'm very flattered that people came. But sometimes I feel like a politician running for office, although as far as I know, I have my office. Where they say stay on message, and I feel sometimes I'm saying the same things over and over again. But the overall goals of Rutgers-Newark don't change from year to year. I mean, they get modified a little bit, but the overall direction is the same. And you've been hearing me say for 9 years at least that Rutgers-Newark, when I talk about it, I talk about 4 things that I think encapsulate what's distinctive about us. Our long-standing and historic commitment to opportunity, our commitment to diversity, our engagement with the city, and the distinguished research that goes on at this institution. So I'm going to give you an update and report on some of the new things that are going on. But with that in mind, with those same 4 themes of opportunity, diversity, urban engagement, and distinguished research. So I'll begin with something I'm sure everybody in the room knows, but I never get tired of telling you that now for the 14th year in a row, U.S. News has ranked us the most diverse campus among national universities in America, and we're very proud of that. Frankly, if we were number 2 or 3, we wouldn't be any different, but nonetheless, it's nice to have the bragging rights, so we still have those bragging rights. But many of you have heard my criticisms of U.S. News rankings, not the diversity rankings. In fact, one of my criticisms of U.S. News rankings is that they're based heavily on what's called reputational studies. They write to every president and every chancellor in the country and say, here are all the national universities, rank them from 1 to 5. What I do when I get that form is rank Rutgers-Newark 5 and rank no basis of judgment for every other university in America. That's my protest against U.S. News rankings. They also count SATs very highly and lots of things that you could call inputs rather than outcomes. But U.S. News has a new category this year, and it's kind of interesting. And it's called A+ schools for B students. And as I thought about it, Helen Paxton first brought it to my attention and thought, isn't that cool? That's what you've been saying all these years. And in many ways, it is a nice way of thinking about things. We really are a top school for students who are not, for the most part, from the kinds of backgrounds where they're eligible to go to the most highly selective schools in the country, but they get an absolutely top education. But there's a new ranking that I'm much happier with than anything involving U.S. News, and you may or may not have seen references to the Washington Monthly rankings. And the Washington Monthly rankings were done as an explicit rejection of U.S. News, or as an alternative to U.S. News. Instead of what U.S. News does, what supposedly constitutes quality in the abstract, Washington Monthly avowedly said their rankings are based on contribution to the public good. And they had 3 criteria. The first was social mobility. That is, schools that recruit and graduate low-income students. The second was research, quality of research produced by faculty, and the cutting-edge scholarship, and the number and quality of PhDs produced by an institution. And the third was service, by which they meant encouraging students to give something back to their community. This was, among national universities, we ranked 18th in the entire country based on these 3 criteria. And to give you a sense of our company, above us in the top 18 was UC San Diego, Berkeley, UCLA, Davis, and Santa Barbara. University of Texas at Austin, Michigan at Ann Arbor, University of Washington, Stanford, Syracuse, Harvard, University of Chicago, and MIT. Not bad company to be in. I keep bragging about this particular ranking. I think it's one bit of evidence that the word is spreading, that there's something very special that goes on at Rutgers-Newark. In addition to that, we've had numerous rankings of individual programs that have ranked different academic programs here very, very highly. I'm not going to take your time to go into all of that. In addition to these rankings, I believe Rutgers-Newark is gaining increased national visibility. And I think there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, there's a growing national interest in urban universities as anchors for the revitalization of cities. More and more people are talking about universities, eds and meds, they sometimes say, universities and hospitals as the foundation on which older industrial cities can be revitalized today. And there is a new task force that was started about 2 years ago called the Anchor Institutions Task Force that is promoting this idea. There are a number of higher education organizations that are now lobbying very aggressively in Washington for an urban renaissance bill, basically saying urban universities can do for cities today what land-grant agricultural schools did for agriculture a century ago. And so there's a growing interest in Washington in this. And indeed, I was part of a group of about 15 presidents and chancellors who were invited to a meeting with the senior White House staff last summer at the end of August to talk about what will probably be announced. We'll see how the elections affect all of this. But they were talking about a Cities in Transition initiative, basically a way of focusing on the role of universities as anchors to build employment, to address social needs, to address the needs of urban school systems, and the like. So there's growing attention to urban universities generally, which is one reason I think we're getting a certain amount of attention. There's also a growing recognition in the country, I think, certainly in the press, that the country needs to significantly increase the number of high school graduates who attend and graduate from college. It's clear that the United States is falling way behind other countries, and our economy cannot remain strong if we don't significantly increase the proportion of our population that has college degrees. And if you're serious about that premise, then urban universities like Rutgers-Newark must be absolutely central to that effort. We enroll, for example, very large numbers of low-income students on our campus. 48% of our undergraduates, roughly, qualify for need-based financial aid, compared with 34% Rutgers-wide. So we're the highest by far of the 3 Rutgers campuses. 38% of our students, undergraduate students, qualify for Pell Grants. These are the grants for the lowest income students. So first of all, we enroll, as we always have, this is opportunity, we enroll large numbers of low-income students, first-generation students. That's one of the things this institution has always been about. Secondly, we work very, very closely with urban school systems, and the Newark school system in particular, to do what we can to increase the number of students who graduate and hopefully come to Rutgers-Newark. And thirdly, we work very, very closely with the community colleges. There's a certain, in elite institutions, there's often a bit of snobism about community colleges. Well, the fact is, about half the students who get baccalaureate degrees from Rutgers-Newark transfer, mostly from community colleges. And their academic performance is just about the same as what we call native students, students who started here. If they've gotten through the community college in a 2-year program, they do very well here. And I'm very proud of that, frankly, that we have so many transfer students, and we are part of the way in which students from modest backgrounds or students who didn't necessarily start with the strongest academic preparation move ahead and succeed.